In Brazil, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov began his tour on Latin American and Caribbean countries. Lavrov ratified Russian readiness to seek lasting solutions to the conflict in Ukraine. In France, protests continue against President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform. And in Sudan, fighting continues between the army and the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group for a third consecutive day, leaving over 200 people dead so far. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Brazil, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held a joint press conference with his counterpart Mauro Vieira on Monday. Vieira said that during the meeting they discussed, among other issues, the situation in Ukraine and possible ways to resolve the conflict in the country. Vieira also said Brazil is ready to participate in the peaceful solution of the conflict. The Brazilian minister reaffirmed the country's position on the ceasefire in Ukraine, which could take place as soon as possible, ensure respect for humanitarian law and the restoration of a lasting peace.
We say that the approaches of Russia and Brazil to the events that are taking place now in the world are similar. We are united by a common desire to contribute to the formation of a more just, truly democratic, polycentric world order. We are interested in resolving the Ukrainian conflict as soon as possible.
Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira ratified his nation's disposition to contribute to a peaceful solution for the conflict in Ukraine and blamed the application of unilateral sanctions.
In the international sphere, we addressed the latest developments in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. I renewed the Brazilian disposition to contribute to a peaceful solution for the conflict, recalling the manifestations of President Lula in the sense of seeking to facilitate the formation of a group of friends from friendly countries to mediate negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. I also reiterated the Brazilian position, the application of unilateral sanctions. Such measures, besides not having the approval of the United Nations Security Council, have negative impacts on the economies of the entire world, and in particular on developing countries, many of which have not fully recovered from the pandemic.
And during his new program, Con Maduro, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro announced that this Tuesday he will receive the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Miraflores Palace to discuss various issues of Russian-Venezuelan cooperation.
Tomorrow, we are going to have Foreign Minister Lavrov here in Venezuela, in important meetings. Important meetings with the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry, our Foreign Minister Ivan Gil, important meeting with our Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, a personal friend of Sergei Lavrov for many years, and I'm going to receive him here in the Presidential Palace of Miraflores to review all the issues of Russian-Venezuelan cooperation and Russia's presence in Latin America and the Caribbean for the good of our region and world geopolitics. We are going to review and talk.
The head of state also ratified his full support for the initiative of the International Conference of the Colombian President Gustavo Petro in search of international support for Venezuela.
I told the Foreign Minister to convey to President Petro all the support for the success of this international conference. And I have seen the statements made today from New York by President Gustavo Petro regarding the call for this group of countries from Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, and groups of countries to seek a way to support Venezuela in strengthening our peace, our democracy, our independence, our sovereignty with respect to Venezuela, and to find a way so that the entire international community has a single voice. Zero sanctions on the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, considered that the fight against fentanyl should be prevented not only with the intervention of drug control, DEA, and that priority should be given to social attention before the use of force. The President informed that U.S. anti-drug agency allegedly infiltrated the Sinaloa cartel to obtain information of the manufacture and trafficking of fentanyl, an investigation that resulted in the declarification of the 5 indictments against 28 people. The head of state emphasized that the most important thing to prevent drug consumption is to take away the anxiety and need to consume drugs among the young people. In this regard, President López Obrador said that it is why the cases of mass address or the illicit substance do not become an option for this sector of the population. Moreover, he ratified his willingness to cooperate with U.S. authorities to address the situation.
It was reaffirmed in the meeting we had in the United States, in Washington. Members of the government of the United States and of Mexico, that we are going to cooperate to help the authorities of the United States, because it is very regrettable what is happening to them due to the consumption of fentanyl. There are many dead and young people, and out of humanism, out of friendship and cooperation, we have to help. But we are also asking them to revise their strategies.
Health authorities in Haiti have recorded 665 deaths from cholera, a disease detected last October after 3 years without diagnosing positive cases. The Ministry of Health reported that so far 2,617 confirmed cases have been registered with a positivity rate of 35.63%. The entity points out that children under 5 years age continue to be the group with highest risk, with more than 23% of suspected cases and 21% of the confirmed cases. Let's take a very short break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. In France, protests against the pension reform scale following the approval of the measures that raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. After 3 months of protests and strikes, the left and unions vowed not to give and warned as mass Labor Day protests on May the 1st. Polls have constantly recorded a majority of French opposed to the reform, which the government framed through a parliament using a controversial mechanism to avoid a vote. Speaking from the Élysée Palace this morning, President Emmanuel Macron defended the reform as necessary and intends doing nothing was no solution. And in Russia, more than 100 speakers and moderators at the Moscow Economic Forum discussed important subjects as no resourcing sectors, production, new industrialization, and the variety of needs of modern society. Alexei Pimenov gave us the details.
The non-resource sector is one of the drivers of economic development, and manufacturing is the engine of social and technological progress. These and other subjects were discussed by the participants of the Moscow and Economic Forum. One of its key topics was the new industrialization and also the diversity of needs of modern society.
It is important that these needs can be satisfied through closer cooperation, a real partnership with such approach. The development of the world as a whole, together with the individual regions, becomes part of the picture.
International organizations have an important role to play in developing partnerships such as ASEAN, the SCO, or the BRICS.
There is a successful cooperation in the BRICS. They have opened the bank. A lot of different investments are being made by the bank. So there are new processes going on in the world.
The answers to challenges already existed in the past, and not necessarily their own. The Chinese experience of modernization was discussed by forum participants at a separate session. One of the conclusions was that China's specialists implemented a special personal policy.
It is based on Confucian principles of selecting competent, honest, and responsible human resources. The second one was a target-oriented policy, oriented on the development of the real sector, on stimulating investment activity and increasing competitiveness. Third, a combination of socialist ideology and market competition.
A respectful attitude toward partners in the international arena is another strength of China's approach. Gleises believes, as equally important is the balanced approach to economic transformation.
Before the reforms, we had about 80% of the population living in the countryside. During the reforms, we protected the interests of the peasants very well, and they sent their children, young people, a very good labor force to develop the economy.
Participants also discussed culture and international relations. There were more than 100 speakers and moderators. It was 2 days of work. The Moscow Economic Forum is a regular event. It is the 7th this year.
And now shifting topics, Peruvian authorities report that heavy rains have affected several areas in the region of Piura. According to the reports, a total of 19 hamlets and 25 settlements were damaged in the districts of Tamo Grande as a result of rainfall on Sunday. Thousands of families were reportedly affected and at least 2 homes lost. The civil defense carried out the evacuation of the affected families and the transporting them to shelters. Officials urged the regional authorities to provide the necessary support to the region.
Pouring rains of approximately 12 hours caused all the houses of this settlement to practically collapse. Mostly those of us in the back parts have been affected because the land terminal up in the north, a wall collapsed there, which stores a lot of water, leading to a collapse of the wall. Consequently, the water flowed here, causing all the houses of the settlement to practically collapse, as I said before. The water got in the houses and complicated the silos because here we do not have sewage systems. We have water, but we do not have drains. But we use our silos, and those silos have practically collapsed too.
TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and join our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. In Sudan, the death toll rose as fightings between the army and paramilitary forces led by rival General Rancho for a third day in defense Sudanese provinces. The death toll from the fighting rose to over 200, with more than 1,800 civilians and combat injuries. Moreover, the number of casualties is thought to be far higher, with many wounded unable to reach hospitals due to the danger of the movement during the fighting. According to the doctors' unions, the fighting had heavily damaged multiple hospitals in the Khartoum and their cities, with some rendered completely out of the service.
80 fatalities, people killed, more than 1,800 injured, including 3 colleagues from the World Food Programme who have been killed while trying to serve the Sudanese people in North Darfur.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on Sudan's warning parties to immediately cease hostilities, return call, and begin a dialogue to resolve the crisis, and condemned the death of civilians.
I strongly condemn the outbreak of fighting that is taking place in Sudan and appeal to the leaders of the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces to immediately cease hostilities, restore calm, and begin a dialogue to resolve the crisis. The situation has already led to horrendous loss of life, including many civilians. Any further escalation could be devastating for the country and the region. The humanitarian situation in Sudan was already precarious and is now catastrophic. I condemn the deaths and injuries to civilians and humanitarian workers and the targeting and looting of premises. I remind all parties of the need to respect international law, including ensuring the safety and security of all United Nations and associated personnel and humanitarian aid workers.
And Syria celebrates on Monday, April 17th, the 77th anniversary of its independence from French colonialism. A day marked by more than 12 years of struggle of its government and the people against the Western neo-colonialism and its tourist agents. From Damascus, our correspondent Hisham Wanus with the details.
The Syrians, attached to the glorious history of their ancestors, who founded the independent national state and rejected all forms of aggression and colonialism, continue today the struggle in defense of their sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. A battle they wage against the U.S. occupation of their country's oil and gas fields, the plundering of their energy and agricultural resources, the separatist groups supported by Washington, the terrorist gangs, and the repeated Israeli aggressions, which are among the multiple aspects of Western neocolonialism.
We are waging a real battle in defense of our independence against the Zionist enemies, against the United States and its allies. And on this glorious date, we ratify that we will keep the highest level of training and willingness to sacrifice our lives in defense of our homeland against the new Western colonialist attempts and their gross interference in our internal affairs.
The European and U.S. economic coercive measures imposed unilaterally on Syria are also part of the methods employed by the West to subdue the people of this Arab nation, a challenge that the Syrians are facing with their own resources and with the support of friendly and allied countries whose economic, humanitarian, and social contributions are helping to preserve the independence of Syria and its people.
The air and sea relief bridges have not ceased to strengthen our people's resolve with humanitarian, medical, and food assistance, which has a positive impact on improving the standard of living of all the Syrian people who are suffering the effects of the war, the blockade, and the earthquake. So we appreciate this helping hand from all the friendly countries, including the United Arab Emirates.
The fraternal peoples of Latin America are also present in this campaign in defense of the independence of Syria. The 800 Cuban international soldiers who in 1973 fought alongside their Syrian comrades against the Israeli occupation and the remains of the brave Cuban soldier Eugenio Calvo Perez, which rest in the cemetery of the Syrian martyrs, are clear examples of this assistance.
In some way, Cuba has also done its bit for the resistance of the Syrian people in the face of so much aggression and so many actions by countries that don't really want peace and tranquility for a country that needs peace in order to develop itself. Cuba was and will always be at the side of the Syrian people, both in international organizations supporting their just cause and in daily life, in development, and in the ways in which we can contribute to a prosperous relationship of mutual benefit for both countries.
The enemy's defeat is inevitable. So say the Syrians on this new anniversary of their independence, who ratified their determination to follow the example of their ancestors in offering their lives in defense of their homeland.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.